So this is the thanks I get for working overtime.
Welcome to Summer Showcase Overtime. I'm Michael Washington. Of course, as always, I got my handy co-host, Zach Bronkhorst, the Milano Seamen quarterback, with me as well. First and foremost, Zach, how's your week going, my man? And congratulations on your big W last week, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a better week after coming off of a W than a tough loss. So enjoying that. But I mean, it was short-lived. Had to turn around and now get ready for probably one of the top, if not the top teams in the entire league this week in Stuttgart. So enjoyed it for about 24 hours and then moved on. So that's just the life.
Life of being a professional football player at any level, or football player at any level, really, in that matter. Before we get into the breaking news, I'm just going to run down last week's scores for week 3. The Madrid Bravos upset the Rhine Fire 22-10. Raiders T-Roll defeated Barcelona 65-7. Helvetic lost to Milano 14-7. Paris defeated Frankfurt 25-22. Berlin beat VfR 43-3. The Vienna Vikings beat the Warsaw Panthers 16-13, and the Munich Ravens kind of dismantled the Prague Lions 51-7 to round out the week. Obviously, big news coming out starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It feels like it's been every day this week. We've had some huge news, and Zach, go ahead, man, and just give us that breaking news that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's been just an absolute carousel of a week. I'm going to just start off with the oldest news of the week. So back on Monday, I think, we, the Milano Seamen, we announced that we are going to sign Sam Westfall as an American defensive back. Last played this past season at University of Virginia in the ACC. Started every game over there, had an interception versus Miami. And then previously before that, he was a 5-year player over at SMU. So a lot of big time experience coming with Sam. And he was just hungry to, play professional football and get his name out there. So he didn't want to sit around and wait. So unfortunate, had to put Marquise Manning on the IR. But we were very happy to be able to pick up a DB at that caliber almost immediately without having to wait too long. So that was a good move that we needed to make, considering last week we played without an American DB.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that it's for not playing with an American DB last week. This defense obviously is taking strides in the right direction for you guys, and it showed last week. It really did against Helvetic, because you guys were able to kind of contain and bottle up Carlton Aiken a little bit. So it will be interesting. I'm excited to see what he's going to do, coming into you guys, and how much it will help your defense even further. Into the season. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just moving straight into the huge news, the absolute carousel that happened. Panthers are releasing the number 2 passer in the entire league right now, in week 1 MVP, Steven Duncan, after a pretty tough performance against Vienna. I guess the Vikings are just turning into the quarterback bad things happen to quarterbacks after you play Vienna. It seems like first you had the whole Tyrol Raiders situation literally a week prior with D'Angelo Fulford. And then very next week they play Steven Duncan and the Panthers. As you said, 16-13 game there for the Vienna Vikings. And some things happened in that game that I guess the Panthers just weren't happy with and decided to move on from Steve. And they ended up signing John Uribe. He was with the Panthers in 21 or 22, I believe. Played a few games with them back in a few years ago. So a guy coming in that's been in the organization before, and that was a real quick turnaround for them. They activated Matt Cole off of the IR. So sadly, we missed out on the Duncan Cole connection that everybody was excited about in the offseason. But they're putting Daniel Bender on the IR and activating Matt Cole. So excited to see one of the preseason, X factor players that everybody kind of was excited to see finally being able to step onto the stage. And then William James was activated from the IR as well, a DB for them. And they released Martin Markachi, I believe. He was
yeah.
a DB. Yeah, so Panthers, man, 6 moves in one day. It was crazy. And coming from a Panthers fan, I'm excited to kind of hear your take on this whole carousel that happened.
You know, to be honest with you, from everything that I've been seeing and reading as far as Stephen Duncan is concerned, from other Panthers fans as well, there's a lot of people that are excited about this move, primarily because I think within the organization, this came from the ending of the game in week 2 against Stuttgart, where they were down by 3, they were driving, and he was responsible for a turnover that ended up basically costing them the game, and they lost by 10. I am not as excited just because I don't feel like I get that these are 1-year contracts for the A imports, and I know these organizations are. It just feels like a very hasty and quick decision. What I will say though is it was a very, very poor performance against a team that was primed and ready to be beat, because Vienna had a backup quarterback in there. They were not playing with an A import at that spot. And I know that Vienna is a really well-rounded team with the defense and everything else. It felt like Steven almost overestimated or underestimated this team without the A import, and just felt like they were going to go in there and beat them. I don't know if that was actually the case, because it's hard to discredit Vienna, right? It's hard to discredit that defense for what they do and what that team does as a whole. It just seems very, very hasty. Like you said, he was the number 2 leader, passing leader. He was the week 1 MVP. And it's not like that they've lost by a ton of points. They've lost by 13 total. Should have been probably 6 at the very least, but they've lost by 13 points total in 2 weeks against a brutal schedule. I mean, let's be honest. Berlin looks like they're one of the top teams in the league. Stuttgart, it looks like one of the top teams in the league, if they aren't one of the top teams in the league. And then Vienna, who's always near the top in the league. So I mean, it's a brutal schedule to open up for the Panthers, and it just seems very hasty to me. But we'll see. Irby, Irby, it might be Irby.
I think it's Irby. Yeah.
Yeah, Irby might have a lot of has a lot of experience in Europe though. So I will say that, and like I said, he's been with it. I'm excited that Matt Cole's coming back, and I'm excited that William James is coming back, because I think that William James is going to hopefully help that secondary out a lot more as well. So obviously a lot of moves for the Panthers. I'm excited to see what the future holds. I'm always nervous about a quarterback change midseason though. Always nervous about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, studying the film from the Stuttgart game, since that's the most recent game Stuttgart had, and since they had a bye week last week, there's just so many opportunities. It felt like that for the Panthers to win that game when you really study the tape, that they just kind of didn't take advantage of. And last week, same story. I mean, the Vikings, as you said, were primed to finally lose a game against a team in their division. And the Panthers just weren't able to take that next step. And it was tough to watch because, I mean, all the offseason hype and moves that they made, it looked like they just needed that one Vienna win to finally be like, yep, this is our conference. It runs through the Panthers now. But Vienna solidly in control now after that start and beating the Panthers. Panthers, I mean, the schedule does not let up. They got the Galaxy this week. I mean, a Galaxy team that's hungry, and, they're 0-2, so they're going to be coming in looking to kind of right the ship. So it's going to be interesting for sure to see how the Panthers can bounce back from that.
Yeah, and Krish, to answer your question real quick, before we move on to the next breaking news, it wasn't like a 10-day NBA contract. It was basically just a 1-week deal where Case and Martin came up and played lights out. Let's be honest. I mean, he looked fantastic. He's been in the system though, because correct me if I'm wrong, he was with Swarco.
Yep, he was.
Yeah. So, I mean, the terminology and stuff doesn't change. We talked about that overall doesn't change too much. So we talked about that, but, we'll get into the news. Well, you could probably segue into it, I think. Well, actually, no, that was actually something newer. That was newer. That was newer. We won't segue into that yet. All right. What else do you have for us, Zach?
Yeah, moving forward, Bravos coming off a huge win, a franchise-defining win against the Rhine Fire, defending champions, 16-game win streak, home opener. Bravos go in there and run the ball with Obi down their throat. It was insane to watch. Pre-game, we had it on some of the the TVs and phones and stuff, just kind of in shock, like what is going on. Sadly, Bravo's losing their quarterback, Chris Helbrig. I mean, tough to see, getting carted off the field. I'm hearing knee injury. I don't want to speculate too much. I mean, we just know it's a lower body injury based off how it was looking on the field during the game. He had them in great position going into the second half, gets hurt early into the third quarter, had to get carted off the field. Just really sucks to see a quarterback that, I mean, like we talked about last week, I think, we can't say injury prone, but I mean, he's just come across some really unfortunate circumstances in regards to injuries the past few years. I mean, last year I think it was a wrist injury with Vienna. This year the knee. They didn't clarify if it was season ending or not, but the things that I'm hearing all sound like season ending injuries. So they did put him on the IR for an indefinite period. Respect to them, though, for putting him on IR if it was a season-ending injury, so that way my boy can still get paid. Yeah. They don't just release him, which is huge. So shout out to the Bravos for kind of handling that the right way and going with the IR route. They did turn around, and I think it was literally a matter of under an hour from the Panthers releasing Stephen Duncan for the Bravos signing Stephen Duncan. Honestly, I think this is a great pickup. I think Stephen fits into the system that they've already established. More of a pro set, under center. You're going to pound the ball with the power run game. And then you got Willie P., probably one of the best receivers in the entire league right now on the outside, burning DBs. No one seems to be able to handle him so far. So I think this is going to be a great situation for Steven to step into. Easy, to kind of make it easy on him with Willie out there. Like, I mean, he's not going to have to do too much week one, I'm sure. When you can also hand the ball off to a 240-pound tank in the backfield that just runs through everything. I think this is a great situation for Steven. Excited to see how the Bravos continue on. But, yeah, statement week this week for them. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, basically, the way that I saw this game as I was watching it was, I think I was in shock, like everybody else was, obviously, about what was going on. This defense is fast. They're quick, and their sideline to sideline speed was what really stood out to me. It felt like it did not matter what Ryan was trying to do, stretch the field, go outside. I felt like those linebackers were there every single play. Losing Chris Helbig's obviously huge. It's unfortunate. I'm glad that the IR, from what I have heard, and I don't know, nothing obviously has been confirmed, it is a knee injury. They are preparing to be without him for the rest of the year. So if that's the case, shout out, like you said, to Madrid for handling that the correct way, so Chris can get paid. Stephen Duncan coming available it's an interesting dynamic, because isn't there a rule in the ELF that if you're going within teams, like there's a 3-game suspension?
It's yet to be clarified by the league. Everything's just speculation. So I guess if we see Steven walk out on the field for first down on Saturday or Sunday, I think they play on Saturday against Cologne. We know that they're just like, that rule is just, we're pushing it under the table, because it was a 3-game suspension if you're moving teams. So if like a quarterback was to demand his release, and then get signed later that day or the next day by another team in the league. Last year and prior years before that, it was a 3-game suspension. This week, I don't know what's going on. No one's clarified. League hasn't clarified. I think Bravos are preparing to play with Steven until told otherwise. So, I guess we'll know on Saturday if he walks out on the field on first down.
It was just such a quick turnaround that I was a little bit surprised that nothing has come out as far as that's concerned, and that they're planning on playing with him. I think Steven does fit this offense. I agree with you. I think he provides a little bit bigger of an arm, but I also think he provides a little bit more recklessness than what Hellbig has as far as trusting his arm the way that he does, right? Like the turnovers were obviously a problem with the Panthers. The Bravos, I think, are solid enough on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, like I said, against Ryan, they looked really good, that they can kind of make up for any mistakes that he may make. But I think the mistakes are going to need to be eliminated in this Madrid offense. And obviously, when you have Willie P, who's the lead leaguer in receiving right now, lead leader in receiving right now, that's always a it's always a safety net to have. So Madrid definitely made a right move by signing Steven Duncan. I'm excited for Steven. I was not happy to see him go. Like I said, I thought it was maybe a little bit of a hasty move, but it is what it is. It's the ELF. I get that it's only 1-year contracts and you're trying to make this happen now, but we'll see what happens with Urbe and with the Panthers, and we'll see what happens with Duncan in Madrid. So
and I mean, addressing the Ryan situation that we saw unfold, it just looked like I know they have issues at receiver right now. There just seems to be a carousel going on, injuries and new signings, releases. I know they released a European receiver this week. They just signed, I can't remember his name. He was from the LFA for the game last week. He was there for like 1 day, I think. They threw him 2 passes. Offensively, they just kind of looked out of sorts, honestly. Like, Jadrian uncharacteristically turned it over twice. That's something we don't expect to see out of the league leader. I mean, I'm sure he'll bounce back and have an outstanding season. I'm not doubting that at all. But it was kind of surreal to see a team that we're just expecting to dominate every single week kind of look out of sorts against a brand new organization. Shout out to Madrid for doing that, but I really wish Ryan had just stuck to the power run game. Like, it just seemed like Glenn was on fire. O-line was run blocking like crazy. And whenever they were doing that, it just seemed like they were having success. That's how they scored, was the power run game. So I wish that they had kind of just let Glenn cook. When you have talent and weapons all over the field like that, some weeks it's one guy's, the other weeks it's the other guy's week, and it looked like Glenn was set up to have that kind of week where he was dominant and just lead them, put him on his back basically and lead them to victory. And I don't know. But I mean, they'll bounce back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a panic, surprisingly, from Tom Sula, because it really felt like the Madrid kind of came out and really made Jadrian uncomfortable, right off the start. And I think that put the offense out of sync. So I think, obviously I'm speculating here, it just felt like that Coach Tom Sula was just trying to rectify the situation by abandoning what was working to try to force something else to happen that wasn't happening. Obviously, you didn't want to become too one-dimensional, because with Madrid's defense playing the way that they did, it still probably would have ended up around the same thing. But I feel like they didn't do a good enough job capitalizing on what the one good thing is that they were doing. Just what I was, from my perspective, anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, they got Paris this week, so they got to bounce back quick.
Yes, they do.
Paris. All right, moving forward to today's news. Starting off with the Vikings. Ben Holmes obviously going on IR. Day before the game was when it was announced. I'm sure the replacement was brought in last week or past weekend, but the Vikings going with Shelton Epler from the LFA. He was down there for 3 years, I believe, previously. He's a Northwestern State University in Louisiana graduate, so FCS, where he was a legend over there, threw for thousands of yards. And then, I mean, you cover the LFA extensively. Kind of give us a breakdown of what the Vikings can expect with Shelton Epler.
Honestly, they're getting a more accurate passer. Vienna signed Epler. It's a fantastic signing, in my opinion. Epler led the league the last 2 years down there with the Fundadors. This year, he broke his own record that he set last year for completion percentage. 72% of his passes were completed. Now, mind you, of those 72% that was completed, he was also number 1 in pass attempts for the year. So he threw more than any of the other quarterbacks in the league, but still completed more percentages. Now, regardless of however you want to look at it, it could be short yardage passes, mid-range game. I feel like a lot of times too many people put an overemphasis on the deep ball side of things, because realistically, if you can't work the mid-range game, your offense is never going to work. It doesn't matter if you can throw it 70 yards down the field or not. And Epler still is able to stretch the field when it matters the most. So they're getting a very accurate passer. What they're also getting is a guy who sometimes, very similar to Stephen Duncan, relies too much on his arm strength and can make too many mistakes. He was this year particularly. Last year was a little bit better. He was a little more careless with the ball this year. Threw more interceptions than he did the previous year, and there was one less game. So or two less games. So there was definitely some issues there. Now I don't know if that's a talent thing that happened with the Fundadors, and obviously it's a revolving door with some of these leagues. But if I'm a Vienna Viking fan, I have to be ecstatic about this signing, honestly, because I think he fits perfectly right into what they're doing in Vienna.
Yeah, I'd love to see them get Reese Horn going finally. I know the first week he was brought in, like it was short notice, so maybe not as much in the game plan. And then last week playing with a national quarterback, of course, like that's going to be tough. I think he had 2 or 3 catches. But that's one of the greatest European receivers that we got sitting at Vienna, not getting catches. Like, I'd love to see him become more involved in the offense. And if Shelton's accurate as you're talking about, maybe open up the game a little bit more, because we really haven't seen a scoring outburst from the Vikings yet as like expected. They've got weapons all over the field. Jordan Bua, running game is looking good, but I mean, you just want to see some explosiveness out of that offense. And back-to-back weeks with the Raiders, and then last week with the Panthers, I mean, it just seemed like there wasn't they won. Like, I guess now we're nitpicking, because they're 3-0. Defense is extremely dominant for them, but yeah, just kind of want to see that explosiveness. And I think if all you're saying is correct, Shelton might be that dude. So it'll be interesting to see how it's handled if he does come over here and show out and continue the success that he had in the LFA over in the ELF. Kind of what works out whenever Ben Holmes is able to return from IR, if Shelton's kind of in a rhythm and the Vikings are looking like championship contenders like expected. So that'll be interesting.
I did want to touch real quick, Zach, before you move on to your next one real quick. It will be a very interesting study to see the differences between the LFA and the ELF and what the league hierarchy is, because he was extremely successful and extremely accurate at the LFA level. It's just whether or not is that because it's the LFA, is the ELF more talented overall, you know what I mean? Like, so it will be very interesting to see how that works out for Epler in that sense. So I'm curious to see that, and obviously, as much as I don't want to see Vienna in my conference be undefeated, I do wish him success, because I am a fan of Epler. I was a fan of his at the LFA level, the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So now segueing to the other Austrian team, a very controversial team these past few weeks, the Tirol Raiders. All the quarterback controversy that they had going into last week against Barcelona just went straight out the window with Colton whenever he showed up on the field. Was the league leader that week in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He had 5 passing touchdowns. I don't know if this is because Barcelona just thought, they're bringing in a quarterback for the week, we got it easy this week, or what the heck happened.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's controversy swirling around Barcelona right now with unregistered players and all this stuff, which just you hate to see it in the league. Like, especially a team that's been in the league since the beginning, a historic team that was in NFL Europe. Like, it's tough to see. But going back to the Raiders, outstanding performance, absolutely dominant from the beginning. With the whole quarterback situation, Colton Martin showing up, doing his thing. Sadly, they released him. I'm sure that they just put him right back onto the Swarco team in case something else occurs during the year. But they did make a splash signing with Nkosi Perry. Previously, Nkosi was with the Jacksonville Sharks earlier this year of the Indoor Football League. Before that, he kind of bounced around CFL, NFL training camps. I know he was signed to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Didn't see any action, I don't think. And then before that, a few rookie mini camps in the NFL. College experience-wise, he was at FAU for 2 years, and then previously before that, University of Miami. So Division I experience, high-level pro ball in the U.S. experience. I don't know much about the indoor football league and what happened. I know the Jacksonville Sharks are near the bottom of that league, and I couldn't find much but one game that he was in. Maybe you could give us some insight on what to expect with Nkosi stepping in for the Raiders.
To be honest with you, I watched the IFL and I missed that that he started the game. I still thought it was the old Jacksonville quarterback, so I actually had to go back and figure it out. But he doesn't have a ton of experience down there. The thing about the IFL though that's wonderful is the IFL kind of mimics a little bit or more so the outdoor game than the like NAL does or the AFL does. So it's more indoor rules, it's outdoor style indoor. So he's not going to have to make too much of an adjustment from indoor to outdoor because it is an adjustment for quarterbacks specifically between the two games. He is a dynamic player. I watched him at Miami. I'm a Florida State fan, so I got to see him up close and personal a few times. He's dynamic in the open field if they can get him, to let him kind of just do his thing and play make. I don't know how he fits in this system, and I really honestly feel like this is going to be another, I hate to say it, but short leash situation. This program, this franchise has done a very fantastic job of taking imports and just basically saying you're not Sean Shelton, so you have X amount of time and you're gone. Like I hate to say it, because I'll be honest with you, last year with Christian Strong at 6-2, that team looked like a championship caliber team, and then they still let him go after a one poor performance, and I think actually it was against Vienna.
It was against Vienna.
It was against Vienna. It was against Vienna, and they were going into their bye week and felt like a change was going to happen, and they never recovered. The team did not look the same. Granted, I understand they also lost Jarvis McClam in the process, but still, it's just like this franchise has really kind of made some weird moves, in my opinion. It's kind of made the job as an import quarterback a little less appealing to people. I wish nothing but success for Nkosi. I hope it's a great fit, and I hope that he balls out. I am honestly surprised that they still went through with the change after the way Case and Martin looked. I understand it was Barcelona and they have all kinds of issues, but man, he looked really, really good. And Eastern New Mexico and Tiffin, in the D2 level, they're both fairly solid programs. So he definitely came from, a solid background.
Eastern New Mexico?
He started at Eastern New Mexico, and then he transferred to Tiffin. Yep.
So I played him. Dang, I don't even remember that.
I mean, everything I've read, anyways, at Eastern New Mexico is a solid program. I don't know much about that program, but
I mean, they were our whipping boys for like 3 years. So I mean,
we're talking. You guys were like what, the South Dakota, the North Dakota state of D2. So I mean,
like 8 consecutive weeks as the number 2 team in the country.
We'll just pat yourself on the back there, Zach.
Yeah.
He started at Eastern New Mexico and then transferred to Tiffin. He may not have had actually He may not have actually played at Eastern New Mexico either, for all I know.
Maybe
I couldn't find much on him from that standpoint. So
gotcha. Piggybacking off what you said with Nkosi, like interesting to bring him into this system, having faced them already. If you're looking for a Sean Shelton, he's not a Sean Shelton type quarterback. He's a dual threat playmaker quarterback. And I mean, honestly, if they were looking for the next Sean Shelton, Christian Strong literally resembles Sean Shelton in the play style more than anyone else that they brought in so far. D'Angelo looked like he was kind of handcuffed. He's also a playmaker, and they had him trying to play like a pro style type offense. It's interesting. I'll be interested to see if maybe they let him, be more of the dynamic player that he is. And if they do, they have a great chance of making a run. They're one of the top teams. They have a lot of talent on defense, one of the best defenses in the whole league. They have yet to play really the top teams in our conference. They're in our conference, the Central Conference. So they still haven't played Stuttgart. They still haven't played Tyrol. It's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see like what they do with him, because he is a very, very dynamic playmaker.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't get recruited to Miami if you're not talented. Let's put it that way. I
Oh,
mean,
no, for
not
sure.
saying that there aren't talented quarterbacks at other levels. It's just when you're talking about a Power 5 school that
Mhm.
in that situation, like you're definitely drawing attention to yourself. So Nkosi definitely, I wish him the best with the Raiders. I just hate seeing that revolving door up there and how they're handling that personally. But that's just
Yeah,
that's a personal thing more than anything.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, just kind of include. This is just based off of the Raiders Dragons game. If nobody heard, they're under investigation right now from the European League of Football for attempting to play with a extra European import or an unregistered European import, one of the two, heading into the Raiders game. I don't believe that they played with him. So I see a bunch of comments of like playing illegal players and still getting killed. I don't believe that they did play with him, but I mean, I think that they're investigating if there was an attempt to try to get him to play. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I don't know when to expect an announcement from the league. I'm assuming it'll be sometime next week. Barcelona will probably go into this home game this week against Helvetic and not have any idea to find out what the penalties are going to be. Probably, I I don't even know if they'll announce it in the sense either. I mean, they may not, but this league's pretty transparent and they're pretty prominent on social media. So I
Yeah.
fully suspect that we'll have some sort of conclusion announced. I'm just assuming just probably next week. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the news that I got after this crazy, crazy week this week.
All right. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsor, and then on the flip side of the sponsor break, we will get into our previews and predictions for the week coming up with, week 4 on the horizon.
This is Current. It's the card my parents used to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school.
Oh, wow.
This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I used to do the things that really matter. This is Current. Visit current.com and download the app for free today.
Shout out to Current. Thank you so much for being our sponsor here at the Shady Sports Network, specifically here on the Summer Showcase Overtime. I'm Michael Washington. He's Zach Bronkhorst, the quarterback for the Milano Seamen. As we head into week 4, it's another week filled with potentially really great matchups. I feel like it's the parity in the league is leveled out enough that there's some really top teams, and they seem to all be playing each other really early this year. So
Yeah.
we'll jump.
Exciting week ahead for sure.
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. Week 4, first game on the slate is the Rhine Fire, coming off that surprisingly rough performance against Madrid. They get to travel to Paris, and Paris is looking like I don't even know. They're looking like they're positioning themselves nicely to be one of the top teams in this league moving forward. What's your predictions and the previews on this one here, man?
Yeah, I mean, Paris, I was on record saying Paris is one of my championship favorites heading into the season way back when we did the week 1 show. And I'm glad to see that prediction is kind of living up to what I made. It's still early in the season, so things have to play out right. It'll be interesting to see how the Fire bounce back after their first loss in 16 games or 17 games or whatever. So I'm going to be bold here, and I'm still sticking to my guns. Zach Edwards pulling out the dub this week. Another statement win for their franchise. They're coming off of a big win against the Galaxy, and I think they're going to stick it to the Fire, and they're going to pull this one out 30-27.
30-27, nice. Last night when I was doing this one, 30-27 is the exact score that Bryce predicted for Paris as well. Just so you know, for Summer Showcase. I do not expect Jadrian Clark and this Rhine Fire team to struggle yet again. I fully expect that this team is going to rebound. Paris is a very tough team. We saw that last week with Frankfurt that they can grind out victories. I think Rhine bounces back in this game. I think that they're going to come in, It's going to be kind of like Munich did in week 2. Took the game personally. I think they're going to come in. I don't think they're going to beat the doors off of Paris by any means. I think this is going to be a very close game. I think Jadrian on a late touchdown wins this game for Rhine and shows why that he still should be an MVP candidate. They win this game 28-27 over Paris.
28-27. So a very close game for you. Back and forth, maybe down to the wire.
Yeah, I think if my prediction isn't correct and Rhine loses this game, I think it's going to be because Paris has the ball last. So it's going to come down to whoever has the ball last in this game, I think, is going to win this one.
Yeah, exciting matchup for sure.
For sure. It's one of my favorite matchups that I'm looking forward to this week. Game number 2 on the slate is Madrid, who upset of maybe ever. They traveled to Cologne to take on the Centaurans. They're facing a tough Centaurans defense, but a little bit suspect on the offensive side of the ball. What's your prediction here?
Yeah, I think the Bravos, I mean, they might start a little bit sluggish, new quarterback, maybe getting used to the system. But I think that they're one of the top teams in the league, and I think they showed that last week. They're well-rounded in all phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. And when you got all 3 of those phases cooking, you're a great team. I think that the Bravos start sluggish maybe, come out in the second half, put it to them, come out with a 38-14 win over the Cologne. I think Cologne, I mean, they're coming off of a bye week. I'm interested to see how they play against the Bravos. But, yeah, I think Bravos are too much.
Yeah, I think the offense to defense ratio is too much leaning in Madrid's favor compared to the Cologne offense, whereas vice versa, Madrid's offense is slightly better than Cologne's defense. I think Cologne has a very strong defense, though. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think for you it's the same thing. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a sluggish start. I think Stephen Duncan's going to take a little bit to get into this. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Madrid down at the half of this game. I went with a little more of a traditional NFL score. I don't know why, because I complimented the kicking in week 1, and all of a sudden the kicking in week 3 just looked god awful. Don't even remind me. I shouldn't have said anything about the kicking in week 1, but I went with a little more of a traditional score. I think Madrid pulls this out and beats Cologne. I think they're going to win 24-17, but I would not be surprised if they were down at half of this game. So 24-17, Madrid. Game number 3, Berlin travels to Vienna. This game is looking like maybe this is the fireworks you're looking for.
Yeah, I predicted Berlin pulling out of the first 50 ball of the week. Unfortunately, it was not them to pull it out. There were 2 over 50 games last week, so we did get our first breaking 50. The Berlin looked outstanding against the Enthroners team that, let's face it, is just wounded right now without their starting quarterback. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be fireworks, I think. What you talked about, Shelton stepping in and being one of the most accurate passers, I think this game has all the spellings for fireworks. I kind of went with a more conservative score, though, just because I don't know what to expect from Vienna's offense, because I just didn't have that much information on Shelton. Thank you for educating me on that. I do think the Vienna defense is top 2 in the league, if not number 1. So I do think that Berlin's going to score, just not as much as we're used to seeing. I got Vienna pulling this one out 27-24.
27-24. That's a solid score. I am on the opposite end of this, and maybe it's because I'm probably the only one pulling this train for Jacob Sullivan to be considered an MVP candidate through the first 2
He is an MVP candidate.
I mean, I feel like he needs to be talked about more because he is playing so good right now. And this Berlin team, I think they're better than what they're getting credit for, too. This is going to be a tough matchup. I think the Shelton Epler, it's a quarterback change, so it's always, I'm always a little bit more conservative and a little more weary of how it's going to be in that sense. I think Berlin wins this game. It's my only major upset of the week that I have, if you call it an upset. I have them beating Vienna 38-28.
Wow. 38-28. Wow. So not just beating them, but 2 scores.
Well, I mean, Berlin is I think they're one of only. I think they might be the only team that I can think of that is averaging over 30 points a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are.
I can't think off the top of my head anybody else that's averaging over 30 points a game, at least without some kind of like a huge explosion like the Raiders had 65 and that just probably raised their average. But I think they're the only team that's consistently scored over 30 every week, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at them, this is going to be a whole different caliber of defense that they're facing. They face
absolutely.
The Panthers defense, who week one, they just looked like a secondary that was all over the place. Yep. And then they had Prague and Throners last week. So that is one thing I want to say is that I want to see the league put more non-conference matchups that are like clashes, like not the Prague versus Ravens or and Throners. I mean, it's just I would like to see the Ravens play Vienna or the Ravens play the Fire. Like we want to see those top dogs clash it out in the regular season and create some excitement so we can kind of limit the massive blowouts that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I know a lot of it's also just based on them wanting to stay within the conference and do all that stuff as well. Yeah. But at some point in time, it's for this league to continue to grow. You have to be self-aware as well and make sure you're putting some of those clashes together. And yes, I do understand that this is this is probably their toughest challenge as far as defense is concerned. So I was a little more originally I was a little more like, okay, like Vienna could easily pull this out. I don't think that the schedule has much to do with how Jacob's been playing as much as it is just Jacob playing at a very high caliber right now. I think his legs make a difference, and I don't know if that's going to pose a huge challenge for Vienna. So I'm very interested to see what happens. For all I know, this game could end up being 17-14. Very similar to what we saw against the Panthers. The last game on the Saturday slate is Helvetic traveling to Barcelona in a matchup of two teams that are struggling, I guess is the best way to put it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Mercenaries, they have a very nice secondary. I'm not going to lie. Having faced them last week, I mean, they've got pieces there on the back end that make it a tough game for anybody. It's just their offensive line not protecting Carlton was just tough to watch. Like Carlton's a great dude and a great quarterback, so watching him from the sideline just getting killed the way he was, it just was tough to watch. Yeah, Dragons, I don't know what happened. That's back-to-back weeks where they're just getting blown out of the water. They, of course, took the week one dub against the Mercenaries, so this is already a rematch. I think, is this the first rematch of the season between two teams?
Yeah, this is the first rematch between the two teams. It is.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually lean towards the Mercenaries. The Dragons defense, I think there's like a script out there or something on how to hang a bunch of points on them. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'm leaning Mercenaries. I do like their defense. Levi Lewis, a great quarterback. I'm sure he'll make stuff shake out there. But I'm leaning towards Mercenaries. If they can protect Carlton, that's the big thing. If they can protect him, and I know he got beat up last week, so I hope he rebounds and is able to play this week. I'm going Mercenaries on the second go-round dub, 30-21.
30-21. Shout out real quick to the Ryan Fire News for chiming in, and nice to see you watching the show here. Summer Showcase. It's just Summer Showcase overtime. It happens Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is usually like midnight around your guys' as well. Anytime, but we definitely are here and talking about it. Talking about the league as well, trying to bring awareness to it for everybody that wants to chime in. Also, if you are listening, for anybody that is listening, if you want to put in your predictions of any sort, you can go ahead and put your predictions in the comments. We'll talk about it as well. We want to get you guys involved as well, as always. The next game on the slate is the first Sunday slate. It's Warclaw, the Panthers, or I still don't know how to pronounce it. I can't get it. Against Frankfurt. In this game, Frankfurt is 0-2, but they are a highly tough 0-2 team. Let's just put it that way. They're a very tough 0-2 team. Panthers, I think this is their Panthers' first road game, actually, after starting off the season with 3 straight home games against some top talent. What's the thoughts in this game and your predictions here?
Man, that Panther schedule, good grief. The Lord, the league decided to just put them through a blender. They saw their offseason and said, we want to test it for sure. Because, man, they're just tough games that they're facing. Galaxy coming off of a tough game against Paris in which it looked like they had an opportunity. I know there are some issues with the kicking game in that game, and that's kind of what it came down to at the end of it. It was a tight game. I believe the final score was 25-22.
Yep.
And I mean, Frankfurt missed, I think, 3 or 4 field goals. So that's the difference in the game right there. Facing the Fire and Paris back-to-back weeks to start your year is tough. I know Galaxy and their fans wanted to see at least one of those pulled out in a win. I'm sure that they're going to bounce back, though. The Panthers, just a very strange and the circle of craziness going on with them right now. I'm sure that they'll be fine, but I think the Galaxy are finally going to get on the winning side and pull out the win here. Luke Zaraka and Markel Castle, we want to see that connection start picking up. I want to see Markel getting closer to double-digit receptions per game rather than what he's been at right now. He's one of the best, if not the best, offensive players in the entire league. So want to see the Galaxy get him really involved in the game plan. If they do that, I think they pull out the win here. I'm going 34-28 Galaxy.
34-28. That's a pretty good prediction there. Primarily because my prediction is 31-28 Frankfurt. Look, the Panthers, on the flip side of the scheduling side of it, Frankfurt has had a very tough schedule too, because the Panthers aren't a pushover team by any means, even with everything that's been changing. They get Matt Cole back, which means they're getting the import wide receiver that they signed preseason. And then on the flip side of it as well, Frankfurt is coming in a situation where when you talked about Luke Zaraka and Markel Castle, it doesn't feel like that this duo has really got themselves going yet, and that's kind of dangerous for the league once they do get going, right? Like, it's just the way that it is, especially with how well they've played the first two weeks. I think the Panthers are okay. I think Irby's going to be a nice little, be able to come in and be able to kind of hopefully keep this offense still trucking along, because it is one of the better offenses. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not this defense is going to be improved with William James coming back from IR. So I'll be interested to see what the secondary looks like, because if the secondary is not shored up, this game could get out of hand very, very quickly for the Panthers. Real quick, the Rhine Fire News has said Galaxy got a good team. They really just had a bad thing of 2 great opponents, and against Paris, they shot themselves in the foot with all those missed field goals. Yeah, Rhine Fire News, I know I know you chimed in a little bit late. I complimented kicking in week 1, and I think I cursed everybody in the league. So I apologize to everybody in the league for that aspect. The next game on the slate is a game that you're involved in, Zach, so we're not going to ask you to dive in too much. You guys are taking on Stuttgart, one of the best teams in the league. You're traveling to Stuttgart. Just give me what you can for this, and I'll give you my score prediction as well.
Yeah, I mean, Stuttgart is one of the top teams, if not the top team in the entire league. Coming off of a bye week, so be interested to see how they come off of that. A lot of teams handle bye weeks differently, so that'll be interesting for sure. I know that they lost an American DB to injury or something occurred, and they signed one of the Schwabich Hall defense. He was a DB for them for a while. Then went over to Canada, played in Montreal I think he was in Canada for 5 years. So he's a vet of the game. They're one of the top teams. Let's face it. They have championship aspirations, and it's tough to, break it down more than that. They look outstanding. It's going to be a tough one for sure. I'm excited to go play, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Last week I predicted you guys to score 21. You had opportunity and whatnot. And
let's be honest. We should have broke 20.
Yes, you should have broke 21 for sure. Absolutely. But you had a lot of things to build on, and a lot of great things to build on for this offense compared to what the first 2 weeks looked like for you guys. So you got some positive things. The only tough part about this is you're running into Stuttgart, right? One of the best defenses in the league, one of the top teams. They were in the championship game last year. I still predict you guys to score 20 this week. So I think that your offense is going to improve enough to that point. But unfortunately, I think the defense is just too much for Stuttgart. And I think you guys are going to lose 43-20. But I am still excited to see this game because it's just, I mean, it's football as well. So,
yeah. I mean, we just want to continue as an offense, building, getting deeper into Coach O'Donnell's playbook. He was here for 2 days before our game against Helvetic last week. So that was probably the craziest thing I've ever been a part of, learning an offense in 2 days and then going out there trying to perform at a high level. So I'm proud of the guys, how they responded last week, and having a full week with Coach. It's been exciting. I'm not gonna lie. He's very knowledgeable. Luke Zaraka played under him, and he has nothing but great things to say about Coach if you ask him. So, yeah, I mean, we just want to keep on building. That's the big thing. Getting to the middle part of our schedule is what we want to really get to. So, getting through these first 4 weeks where we face 3 of the best teams in the entire league, it's tough, but we just want to keep building as a franchise.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all that it's matter is just continue improving week in and week out, right? That's all you really want to see. So, all right. The next game on the slate, Munich, who apparently is still taking that week 1 loss very, very seriously, is taking on the Raiders T-Roll. Is this a rematch?
No, this is their first matchup.
This one, who did Munich lose to in week 1? I forget.
Stuttgart.
Oh yeah, it was Stuttgart. That's right. Okay. Yeah, they're taking on the Raiders T-Roll. Obviously, Nkosi Perry's coming over, taking over for Kason Martin, who had a fantastic week last week. What's the thought process here on this one?
Yeah, I mean, like we both said, and I said last week, I think the Ravens,
Yep.
Munich Ravens, they're taking that week 1 showing against Stuttgart personally, and having talked to a lot of their players after our game against them, that's exactly the vibe I got from them as well. They have been clicking on all cylinders on offense, both running game and passing game. Their defense looks outstanding. They've got talent all over the field. And honestly, the Raiders, I don't know what we watched last week with the Barcelona Dragons, an absolute domination. I mean, what we saw, but at the same time, I don't know what happened to the Dragons. And going with the third quarterback in 4 weeks is going to be tough for the Raiders. I'm interested to see if they, like we talked about earlier, if they let Nkosi be Nkosi and be a dynamic playmaker, or if they try and bottle him up and sit back there in the pocket and be like Sean Shelton 2.0, like what they've been looking for. If they can allow him to be the playmaker he is, I think they're going to put up a really good fight because he's very dynamic. But I got the Ravens pulling this one out. I'm going with 38-27. I think the offense for the Ravens is clicking, and I think the defense is going to be playing really good. What about you?
That's a good score prediction. Mine is 34-28 Munich. Nkosi Perry coming over, obviously he needs to be able to be the dynamic player that we all think he can be and all that we all know that he has been in the past. I agree with you. I don't know if this organization is going to let him do that, unfortunately. I certainly hope so, because I think the game will be more interesting in that sense. This defense is still a very good defense. I think they're going to create some turnovers and some short fields for the Raiders, and hopefully Perry can capitalize on them. But Munich, I think, is just clicking on all cylinders, and this defense has looked really good the last 2 weeks as well. The offense is clicking on a high level, so I think Munich is going to pull it out. Chad Jeffries is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this league as well. So I honestly feel like that Munich is going to make a statement in this game and maybe not lose the lead at all. They may actually lead from start to end. So 34-28 Munich in this one.
Yeah.
The last game, Prague struggling mightily, taking on Hamburg. Javarian Smith is, leading this Hamburg team. They had a bye week last week. So what's your predictions on this one as well?
Yeah, I mean, last time we saw Hamburg, they struggled against Paris. Paris dominated them from start to finish in Hamburg's home opener. So headed into that bye week, I'm sure Javarian and the offense wanted to get back on the field as soon as possible and, put a better showing out there than they did against Paris in week 2. Lions, I was excited to see them. They made some splash moves in the offseason with Daniel Wright and Kyrie Lyles. But man, that last week did not look good. I don't think they got on the board until late in the game with a long run, which I think was just a lack of focus on the Ravens' part more than anything. The protection on Kyrie was really bad. He was getting hit a lot. They tried getting him involved in the run game. A lot of tackles in the backfield for the Ravens. Yeah, just the Lions just kind of, I don't know. I was surprised. I thought they were going to put up a better fight against Hamburg week 1. I predicted them to actually win, and I was wrong on that one. So I think Hamburg's got a little bit of chip on their shoulder after the showing they had against Paris, and I think Javarian's going to go out there and put on a show, really get Jarvis McClain cooking early. I think it's going to be a 30-10 win for Hamburg.
Yeah, unfortunately Prague is in the situations, obviously new ownership. I know that they kind of had to strip this team down from last year to kind of rebuild it up this year. They're still in that process. Unfortunately, when you set yourself back like that, you set yourself back an extra year or two at any level. Kyrie has not looked very good, and I think that, like you said, I'm glad you touched base on it. I think a lot of it's the offensive line, the protection issues that they are having, because they are definitely having some protection issues up front. And I think that that's unfortunately going to lead Hamburg to probably the blowout game of the week, barring some kind of crazy, game earlier on the slate. I have this one 37-6, Hamburg. I was going to say 37-7, and then I just remembered kicking is just, it's the kicking. So 37-6 in this one, Hamburg. Javarian Smith, I think I agree with you. They're going to take the Paris game and kind of try to put it behind them and move on from it. So,
yeah. I mean, hey, shout out to Milan, because you had Helvetic winning last week 24-21, and our defense held them 7 points. And
yes,
it was the first drive of the game. So
yeah, yes. Shout out easily to Milan for that, and shout out. Hopefully this week you guys can hit the 20-point mark where I said 20, gave you guys another 20 spot as well. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of us were very close on predictions last week, though. We might have been like a few.
I had Berlin winning big. They did not break the 50 ball. They were 43-3. I think we both had enthroners pulling out at least 17. So yeah, we did not predict for sure the Dragons versus Tyrol score though.
Well, to also be fair with VRFR in that game, the Enthroners game, we did not also know that Jack Mangle was going to be end up on IR as well. And actually, we haven't heard anything from them bringing anybody in. Last year, if I remember correctly, their A import got hurt, and they stuck with Matej Hegedus through that stretch, and that's what it looks like they're going to do again, is stick with Matej Hegedus at the quarterback spot.
I'd love to see them get a quarterback in there to at least replace Mangle while he's on IR, because we just want to see Roby get going. Like whenever him and Mangle were playing together week 1, it looked they were putting on a show. And last week, the last 2 weeks, we really haven't seen Roby do much because his hands are kind of tied behind his back. And I'd love to see them get somebody in there that can get Roby the ball. So we'll see.
I'm surprised they didn't double dip back into Kevin Doyle Jr., who was there last year, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, so I don't have anything else, Zach. I don't know if you do before we get off on, this show, this episode this week, or.
No, just let's go Kickers. Come on.
Let's go Kickers, exactly. From now on, I will refrain from saying congratulations or giving any credit where credit's due to any particular group, because it's just going to end up being a nightmare for us in a couple weeks. Shout out first and foremost to Shady Sports Network. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button over on YouTube. Make sure you hit the little dingy thing so you get the notifications whenever we come on. This is Summer Showcase Overtime. We're here at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's on my side here in America. That's what, on your midnight over there for you, Zach?
Yeah, midnight's when we start.
Midnight's when we start. That's right. I like that as well. This is every Wednesday. We also have the Summer Showcase, which is the one prior to this. It's on Tuesdays at 8:00 p.m. Eastern over there. So if you're overseas, obviously 6 hours ahead as well. And we also have a new Summer Showcase show started. We started last week. It centers around the CFL. It's called Summer Showcase Northern Lights. where me and Sam break down a lot of the CFL action and news and everything else. If you guys are interested in football, that's what we bring you to you here. Shout out to Milano again last week for a nice, impressive defensive run and nice improvement on offense. And until next week, so long.